Good evening. This is Dhammasukha Meditation Center, Bhante Vimalaramsi, and he's going to do a talk this evening from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 2, Sabbāsava Sutta, all the taints. And today is January the 20th, and it's 2011. At the Dhammasukha Meditation Center in Missouri.
Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathanpindika's park. There he addressed the monks thus. Monks, Venerable Sir, they replied, the Blessed One said this. Monks, I shall teach you a discourse on the restraint of all the taints. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monks replied, the Blessed One said this. Monks, I say that the destruction of the taints is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and see. Who knows and sees what? Wise attention and unwise attention. What's the difference between wise attention and unwise attention?
Wise attention is mindful attention.
What's unwise attention?
Unwise attention is...
Don't feel pressured, it's okay. Unwise attention is indifference. That's when you let your mind just take off and you say this or that without with getting caught up in it, taking what you're saying personally. When one attends unwisely, unarisen taints arise, and arisen taints increase. When one attends wisely, unarisen taints do not arise, and arisen taints are abandoned. So what are we talking about?
Taints, hindrances.
Focusing on the wrong word.
No.
Practicing the
6 hours.
Oh, okay. Monks, there are taints that should be abandoned by seeing. There are taints that should be abandoned by restraining. There are taints that should be abandoned by using. There are taints that should be abandoned by enduring. There are taints that should be abandoned by avoiding. There are taints that should be abandoned by removing. There are taints that should be abandoned by developing. Taints to be abandoned by seeing. What taints, monks, should be abandoned by seeing? Here, monks, an untaught ordinary person who has no regard for the noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, who has no regard for true men and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, does not understand what things are fit for attention and what things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he attends to those things unfit for attention, and he does not attend to those things fit for attention. What things unfit for attention that he attends to? They are things such as when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire arises in him. The arisen taint of sensual desire increases. The unarisen taint of being arises in him, and the arisen taint of being increases. The unarisen taint of ignorance arises in him, and the arisen taint of ignorance increases. These are the things unfit for attention to, that he attends to. So what are we talking about here? What do you have to do to...
He's talking about when you don't 6R.
What happens when you don't 6R? What happens when your mindfulness is not there?
Lust can arise, or if it's in there, it'll get worse.
Absolutely. So what we have to do is be really careful.
All will be explained.
I'm a
in due
few
time.
clicks behind.
And what are the things fit for attention that he does not attend to? They are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire does not arise in him, and the arisen taint of sensual desire is abandoned. The unarisen taint of being does not rise within him, and the arisen taint of being is abandoned. The unarisen taint of ignorance does not arise in him, and the arisen taint of ignorance is abandoned. These are the things fit for attention that he does not attend to. By attending to things unfit for attention and not attending to things fit for attention, both unarisen taints arise in him and arisen taints increase. That is how he attends unwisely. I was in the past, or was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been what? What did I become in the past? Shall I be in the future? Shall I not be in the future? What shall I be in the future? How shall I be in the future? Having been what? What shall I become in the future? Or else he is inwardly perplexed about the present. Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this being come from? Where will it go? When he attends unwisely in this way, one of the 6 views arise in him. The view self exists for me arises in him as true. Or the view I perceive self with self arises in him as true and established. Or the view I perceive not self with self arises in him as true and established. Or the view I perceive self with not self arises in him. You know, I've heard so many American Dhamma talks, and this is talking directly at that, because they're so confused about what
It
what
highlights
self
all of the
is.
ways that they can get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also feels like it's going through like all of Western philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's interesting.
Before there was a West.
the whole thing with a lot of the Western ideas is it's influenced by Christianity. And Christianity, there's nothing wrong with Christianity, it just has a limited view or perspective of a being. And some people will say that when you die, you're going to go to heaven forever. I mean, that's an absurd thing to say. Nothing is forever. And they're in the New Age community, oh, you never die, you always are around. I mean, these are all views that are just, they were present during the time of the Buddha. But there's so much confusion, especially with the Buddhists. They tiptoe around anatta as much as they possibly can. Perceive self with not self arises him as true and established.
Yeah.
Or else he has some such view as this. It is the self of mind that speaks and feels and experiences here and now the result of good and bad actions. But this self of mine is permanent. That's the one that's currently everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. And it will endure as long as eternity.
With a little therapy, it'll come right in line.
This speculative view is called the thicket of views, the wilderness of views, the contortion of views, the vacillation of views, the fetter of views. Fettered by the fetter of views, the untaught ordinary person is not freed from birth, aging, and death, from sorrow,
lamentation, pain, grief, and despair.
He is not freed from suffering, I say. Monks, a well-taught noble disciple who has regard for noble ones, is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who has regard for true men and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, understands what things are fit for attention and what things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he does not attend to those things unfit for attention and attends to those things fit for attention. Those things unfit for attention he does not attend to. Why? 6 articles. They are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire arises in him, and the unarisen taint of ignorance increases. These are the things unfit for attention that he does not attend to. And what are the things fit for attention that he attends to? They are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire does not arise in him. And the arisen taint of ignorance is abandoned. These are the things fit for attention that he attends to. By not attending to things unfit for attention and by attending to things fit for attention, unarisen taints do not arise in him, and the arisen taints are abandoned.
So things fit for attention that don't cause these other things to arise.
Right.
And that's
Staying in the present moment, not getting caught up in the thicket of views. Did they say trammel of views in there?
Yeah. Oh no, it was, you said thicket. Trammels.
Thicket of view, wilderness of view, contortion of view, vacillation of view, fetter of views, fettered by the fetter of views.
That's another book.
It's
Trammel.
yeah. See, the worst thing that happens to people is they believe that their mind is them. And it's not. And they believe that any concocted story that arises that's their opinion. And they'll defend it to the end. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
How does that belief happen?
Many, many years of past action without being attentive. They're shooting at your ex.
Don't tell him that. It's okay, sweetie. It's okay. It was just a fire. It's okay. It's okay.
So the whole thing comes down to when you take the Buddhist perspective of things, the why, the want for things to happen in a particular way, all of these things go out the window. All of those kind of desires, those kind of intellectual games, when practiced, disappear. Every thought that you have is a concept. What is a concept? Concept is a chair. Where is the chair? Is it the arms? Is it the legs? Is it the seat? Is it the back? Where is the chair? The chair is made up of a lot of little things put together to make up this concept.
Just like,
Where's the body? I can show you 32 different parts. Is that the body? I can show you how it rots and disappears. Is that the body? See, everything is concepts. And the whole point of the Buddhist practice is to see with wisdom's eye. In other words, see what's happening in the present moment without craving and clinging. And when you see that want for an inner child coming up, what is that? It's a feeling.
oh,
And then there's craving about that feeling. I either like that feeling or I don't like that feeling. And then there's all of your thoughts and opinions and concepts. And then your emotional attachments.
yeah, it seems like there's those steps I don't know that much about yet.
Well, they'll come. Don't worry. But when you see a feeling arise and you right then that craving won't arise. And if the craving doesn't arise, then the clinging doesn't arise. That's how you purify your mind.
You know, so a feeling arises, and then there's a thought,
Crazy.
and there's craving.
I like
Okay.
it, I don't like it. That's attention and tightness. Then the thoughts arise.
By the time you 6R, has the thought always arisen, or you can 6R before the thought?
You can 6R before the thought.
Eventually.
So the point is, this thing about the inner child is just putting more concepts on top of concepts on top of concepts in order not to have any concepts. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work that
Well,
way.
in relationship to his training so far, this inner child is an excuse.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to continue
He's
craving
been
and
looking
clinging.
for excuses since he started practicing with me.
There must
He was one of the interpreters from English to German. And when he got done with the retreat, he told me that I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not anything, I'm a philosopher. And I said, well, that's a cause of a lot of suffering. That means all you do is think about it and you don't take part in life. And the next time he came, he was oh, I've been practicing, I've been teaching other people about the 6 R's, but he did it in such a bizarre way.
Yeah.
He's trying to be politically correct, like this other man that came. He tried to be politically correct, and I'm sorry, being politically correct doesn't work. You can't make everybody happy all the time. There are, I mean, you can't be politically correct and criticize someone for breaking a precept. That's not politically correct. We have to accept that in that person. Well, yeah, you can accept that in that person all you want, but that doesn't help them. But when you point out you are breaking a precept here, it's good not to do that. He couldn't accept the fact that you can actually do that. Couldn't accept it at all. So it's kind of a bizarre position that doesn't have anything to do with the reality of being a Buddhist. And it really doesn't help for this political correctness to be here at this time. All it does is you say you're politically correct. You got to be able to say things so that everybody will agree with you. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to do that. Because that's not the job of the teacher to do that. The job of the teacher is to teach you the right way. Your job as a student is to practice and see if it's right or not. But the political correctness is just another way of saying you're wrong no matter what you do or say. And that's what political correctness is. I just came back from Asia. I saw some Chinese girls walking across the street, and I said, oh, there's some Orientals. I spent 12 years in Asia. That's what they call themselves. And I was told that that's not politically correct to say something like that. And I said, but they call themselves that. Well, for you, you're not an Oriental, so you can't call them an Oriental. Wow. That's when I got really fed up with. I hadn't heard that expression before, that political correctness. When I left, it wasn't there. When I came back, it was, and I've been fighting it ever since. Okay, he attends wisely, this is suffering. He attends wisely, this is the origin of suffering. He attends wisely, this is a cessation of suffering. He attends wisely, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. When he attends wisely in this way, 3 fetters are abandoned in him: personality, view, adherence to rules and rites and rituals, and doubt. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by seeing. So what we just said here, this is a way leading to the cessation of suffering. When he attends wisely to this way, 3 fetters are abandoned. In other words, you become a Sotapanna.
Sotapanna.
First stage of awakening. Taints to be abandoned by restraining. What taints should be abandoned by restraining? Here a monk, reflecting wisely, abides with the eye faculty restrained. While taints, vexation, and fever might not arise in one who abides with the eye faculty unrestrained. What is fever?
Like a fever? No, like a
Fever is craving. Everything is burning. What is burning? The eye is burning. The eye contact is burning. Or the eye forms are burning. Eye consciousness is burning. Eye contact is burning. Eye feeling is burning. What's it burning with? Craving. There are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who abides with the eye faculty restrained. No taints, what does that mean?
The things you're just listing?
There's no sensual desire,
No craving.
no being, no ignorance.
Essential. Oh yeah, those are the three things.
What is ignorance?
Belief in a personal.
No, that's delusion. Ignorance is not knowing and seeing how the Four Noble Truths actually work. What is vexation? Waking up.
Well, he needs a pillow. Don't do it.
Cut it out.
What is vexation or fixation?
Vexation.
Vexation. Confusion?
Doubt.
Doubt. Oh, yeah.
Reflecting wisely, he abides with the ear faculty restrained, with the nose faculty restrained, with the tongue faculty restrained, with the body faculty restrained, with the mind faculty restrained. How do you restrain them?
6 hours.
With taints, while taints, vexation and fever might arise in one who abides with the faculties unrestrained. There are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who abides with faculties restrained. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by restraining. What should be abandoned by using? What taint should be abandoned by using? Here, monks, reflecting wisely, using robes only for protection from cold, for protection from heat, for protection from contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and creeping things, and only for the purpose of concealing the private parts. Reflecting wisely, he uses alms food neither for enjoyment, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of the body, for ending discomfort, and for assisting the holy life, considering, I shall terminate old feelings without arousing new ones. And I shall be healthy and blameless and shall live in comfort. Reflecting wisely, he uses the resting place only for protection from cold, for protection from heat, for protection from gadflies, mosquitoes, wind and sun, and creeping things, and only for the purpose of warding off the perils of climate, for enjoying retreat. Reflecting wisely, he uses the medicinal requisites only for protection from arisen of afflicting feelings and for the benefit of good health. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who does not use the requisites thus, there are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who uses them thus. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by using. So in order to be alive, you have to have four things, really. And you have to have food, you have to have clothing, although there are some naked ascetics, they use dirt as their clothing. They don't wash.
Gotcha.
So, abandon means letting go of the concern for and just using for the
Just
purpose
using
of
for the
this,
purpose
or-
of whatever that purpose is. Need a place to stay. Need to be undercover. If you just stay out in the open, there is one of the Dhutanga practices where monks can stay out in the open, but what they use for their shelter is their robe. They hook it up on sticks, because you got to get away from the sun. You got to get away from the wind. So you try to set it up in a place that you can do that. So you need cloth for clothing, you need food for eating. You need to have a place to stay in so you can get out of the way of mosquitoes and that sort of thing, gadflies. And you need medicine. It's amazing how many medicines come your way when you're a monk. He had to carry them all. And I didn't even get sick. He got sick.
Yeah. The stuff I used, I had to buy in the end. It wasn't there.
So the taints connected with using those?
Being attached to them. I know one guy that he dyed this robe, and every other monk lusted after this robe because it was a perfect color. So he was real proud because he'd go out strutting every day.
That's so funny.
Well, it's hard to make the robes the right color.
Oh.
And you hit it about 1 out of 10 times.
You have to dye it?
Yeah. When you're in the forest, use jackfruit bark and some of the inner bark. And you have to boil it for, well, it's about a week.
Wow.
That's a major process.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So when you do that and it comes out perfect, I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction. Taints to be abandoned by enduring. And what taints monks should be abandoned by enduring? Here a monk, reflecting wisely, bears cold and heat, hunger and thirst, with contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, the sun, and creeping things. He still endures ill-spoken, unwelcome words, and arisen bodily feeling that are painful, racking, sharp, piercing, disagreeable, distressing, and menacing to life. In other words, if you're going to be a monk, you got to be tough. And it's really true. People keep trying to make life so pleasant for monks. wherever I go, they were always trying to give me more than I wanted, give me more than I needed, make me more comfortable than I should have been. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who does not endure such things, there are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who endures them. These are called taints that should be abandoned by enduring. And it's tough to be around in a malaria area and get bit by mosquitoes. It's tough.
Have you had malaria?
No. I lived in malaria areas, but mosquitoes don't really like me all that much. Except they like your ankles and your feet at night. So I always covered my ankles and my feet up with a piece of cloth. Then I didn't have any problem. They'll bite right through socks, unless they're thick socks, and you don't want to wear thick socks in Asia. So you just get a piece of cloth like this, wrap it around your feet, and it's fine. Taints to be abandoned by avoiding. What taint should be abandoned by avoiding? Here, monk. Here, a monk reflecting wildly avoids a wild elephant. It's wise. A wild horse, a wild bull, a wild dog, a snake, a stump, a bramble patch, a chasm, a cliff, a cesspool, a sewer. It's wise to avoid those things. Reflecting wisely, he avoids sitting in unsuitable seats, wandering to unsuitable resorts, and associating with bad friends, since if he were to do so, wise companions in the holy life might suspect him of evil conduct. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who does not avoid these things, there are no taints, vexation, and fever in one who avoids them. Sometimes you can't help but you can't avoid snakes because they come around. You can't avoid dogs because they come around. Do you know if it's a wild dog or not? So you try to avoid as best you can because they cause your mind to be unstable because you get over concerned about them. And speaking of mosquitoes and malaria, I did have one monk friend die from malaria. The malaria went up into his head. There was nothing they could do about it. These are called taints that should be avoided by avoiding, Taints to be abandoned by removing. What taints monks should be abandoned by removing? Here a monk reflecting wisely does not tolerate an arisen thought of sensual desire. He abandons it, removes it, does away with it. 6 hours it. He does not tolerate an arisen thought of ill will.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Abandoning it. I mean, I understand that you're saying that's the 6 hours. Does he explain in
What right effort is? Yes.
Is that's right effort? Okay.
Often. He does not tolerate an arisen thought of cruelty. He does not tolerate an arisen evil, unwholesome states. What are evil, unwholesome states?
Evil, unwholesome states?
Yes.
Craving so much that you break a precept?
Any distraction, anything that you take personally is an evil, unwholesome state. I'd like to take the word evil out of this.
Yeah, it threw me off.
Yeah. He abandons them, removes them, does away with them, and 6 R's them. While taints, vexation, and fever arise in one who does not remove these thoughts, there are no taints, vexation, and fever in one who removes them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by removing. What taint should be abandoned by developing? Here a monk reflecting wisely develops the mindfulness awakening factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassions, and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. He develops the investigation of experience awakening factor. He develops the energy awakening factor. So the whole thing with energy is you try too hard, you make yourself restless. You don't try hard enough, you start ho-humming and get dull. So you have to learn how to adjust. That's what the meditation part of it really is about, is learning how to adjust so that there can be perfect balance in your mind. And you might have to adjust in one sitting a few times. So the hardest one to adjust to is sloth and torpor, because you start getting sleepy and dull, and then you notice that, and you always put too much energy in. And then that energy just kind of fades away, and then you go back to being sleepy and dull again. You have to do it little by little, take an interest in how does sloth and torpor arise? How does it arise? What happens first? What happens after that? What happens after that? When you start looking at how it arises, you start teaching yourself about that hindrance. And you start to recognize when it starts and what a little amount of energy that you need to take. Energy means interest in your object of meditation. So the more interest you use staying with your spiritual friend, the easier the whole process becomes. The joy awakening factor, the tranquility awakening factor, the collectedness awakening factor, the equanimity awakening factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who does not develop these awakening factors, there are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who develops them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by development. Monks, when for a monk the taints that should be abandoned by seeing have been abandoned by seeing. When the taints that should be abandoned by resisting have been abandoned by resisting. When the taints that should be abandoned by using have been abandoned by using. When the taints that should be abandoned by enduring have been abandoned by enduring. When the taints that should be abandoned by avoiding have been abandoned by avoiding. When the taints that should be abandoned by removing have been abandoned by removing. When the taints that should be abandoned by development have been abandoned by development, then he is called a monk who dwells restrained with the restraint of all the taints. He has severed craving, flung off the fetters, and with the complete penetration of conceit, he has made an end of suffering. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied in the Blessed One's words. I'm going to put my glasses on here. I expect them to be here tomorrow. Everyone.
I don't think anybody's using your glasses.
I have no clue where they went.
Bear, did you take them?
Well, things get moved around occasionally.
Smiling, I hope.
That guy.
So the whole point of the sutta is to show you the things that you need to keep developing. What are the main things that you need to keep developing? The 6
R's, yeah.
When you do that, all the other things fall into place. Because you're letting go of the unwholesome, you're relaxing and letting go of the craving, you're bringing up the wholesome. All of these other things will fall into place when you keep 6R. That's one of the beauties about the practice, is it is very simple. 6R. Smile, laugh. And everything else will answer itself. Remember that hindrances are not enemies to fight with. They're there as your teacher. They're showing you where your
Is numbness
attachments are.
a hindrance?
What?
Numbness? Is that a hindrance?
No.
Like,
You mean indifference?
well, like, I mean, I guess it has to do, because if I had one question for you tonight, it would have been about kind of energy, and you kind of answered it about having interest in your friend. And sometimes when I'm meditating, I find it hard to get in touch with that metta. I don't know,
You're not
just too
smiling
hard.
enough.
Huh?
You're not smiling enough.
But I feel
That's
like
the
sometimes
answer. I don't care. You're not smiling enough. You're starting to take it seriously when you start pushing to make a feeling happen the way you think it should.
Like the joy that happened this morning that didn't happen for the rest of the day.
As you wanted it to happen, right?
It's hard to help.
Who wanted it to happen? I don't know.
I wanted it to happen, but there's no me, so how I want it to happen.
Well, that doesn't mean that there's not a belief that you're there.
Yeah. The belief is there.
So the whole thing comes down to making it into a game, playing with it, instead of you started getting a little bit serious with it, trying to make it happen the way it happened this way before, I'll make it that way again. No, you won't. Doesn't happen that way. Sorry.
Yeah, I was trying not to do that. Just, I don't know.
Well, there is no try. Yoda was a very smart guy. There's either do or don't do. There is no try. Okay, let's share some merit. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, Devas and Nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.